All right, let's get to it. We're going to bring Mac up in here. You're going to act a fool on me. I'm going to say something about what I can't hear and what I can't hear on him, and you're going to go through it. You know what I mean? This is my bro, Mac Hudson, and he's coming home after 33 years in prison. Think about that. 33 years in prison, and Mac's making it home. So let me welcome him to the show. Stop talking about him and talk to him. I said, Mac Hudson, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How we know that's you, man? We got to check this.
Come on, man. You know that's me. What's the word?
I'm suspicious. How you feeling, bro? How you feeling?
Alive and free. Alive and free, bro. How about yourself?
Oh, man, you know, you say free. We on the same page with that. Spent our whole life in there. Just so the people that don't know, you'll know, we were in there since we were kids. I was in there since I was 18, 32, and my bro coming out right behind me, 33 years in. What'd that tell you? And I'm going to take this background out for a minute, in your mind, so they can hear that wonderful voice of yours on radio. I try to really bring it to them. I do. I try to bring them your voice on Sunday night love sessions.
Okay.
Go say hello to the ladies real quick.
That's what it is. You want me to do the love session? All right.
Yeah,
you know what, man? I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there, man. This Sunday, man.
He gonna be there this Sunday.
Right. I'm gonna let you hear the Casanova voice, man.
Hold on, they can hear it now. Hold on, stop all that. We gotta wait, ladies. You don't gotta wait. I am telling you about my brother. I'm trying to cheer myself up, and I've been on here talking to them about what happened to the sister up in Franklin Park. You know what I mean?
I know,
man. That's just even Boston May. Now Boston May is in Franklin Park more than Franklin Park's in Franklin Park, right? And she gonna know. And she's like, I was up there yesterday too, man. So shout out to Boston May. But, you know, and she got a voice every Monday. You'll be hearing from her, I guarantee you. Tomorrow, if you go on Morning Motivations with May, she going Morning Motivations with May is a bunch of M's I was about to say. She's gonna motivate your morning on this conversation. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. What you thinking on that? I don't know if you got to see that. Man, 91 years old. Come on, black woman walking through the community. Any woman.
You know, it was just so, man, you know, interesting because, you know, when you had chimed in about that, we was just having a conversation about that, you know, down at the Veterans Place down on 895. And shout out to Mary Tuitt, you know, and we was having a luncheon event down there, and the conversation that came about what happened to the sister, and I was just like, you know, I was shocked. I ain't gonna lie, you know. It kind of almost speaks to, like, even when we was coming up in the streets, right, there was a code and ethics, right, that we all lived by. You know, people who lived in the streets, we all knew who those individual players were or what have you, and or who represented that, right? But, you know, civilians was one thing, and then street people were a whole different thing, right? So it was like, it's like now the lines are so blurred, right? And I don't know if it happened. Let me say that because I don't know what happened, why it happened. I don't know if it was a street person or if it was someone cracked out, doped out of their mind, suffering from mental health. There's just so many
I didn't say
variables.
those things, Em, just so you know. So I'm in concurrence with that. But one part I'm not in concurrence was, you know, with is terms of, you know, what reason you would have. I'm not going to find any reason at all, right? You know what I mean? Say it was a Black Lives Matter scam, so they say, right? Anything took 90 billion from me, man. I'm not. There's no reason to be stabbing up no 91-year-old black woman. Take the reason. I don't never think there's a reason. I don't know. Let me say, and probably maybe what I am putting out there is a reason because, I mean, there are. You know, I would like to think that when something like that happened, that's not someone in their right state of mind, right? And the only thing that I could imagine, you know, would be, you know, someone who is cracked out, doped out, someone who is suffering from great mental health that happened, you know, just happened upon this lady and you know, led to such a horrific result, right?
And I mean, God, it's, you know, it's God blessed that she, you know, she's alive and she's still among us, you know. But the fact of the matter is that it doesn't change, you know, I think the awe and shock of it all, that this is where we, you know, where we're at. And so, and that's why I think I was drawing the whole, you know, idea about conceptually what it meant to be a street person, and the hold down the block, or the hold down your thuggism, or the hold down whatever. You know, you didn't do stuff like that. But I could see as generations done evolve now, you know, what was once held as a principle has now become, you know, all good. And I think that's really where the problem really comes, right? You know, everything's all good now. You know, it was a time if you was with your, you know, you seen your smoke with their moms or their kids or whatever, you know, they would get a pass until the next time you see them. Now today, they'll gun down the moms, the kids, and the person. You know what I'm saying? And then call that gangsterism. You know, so what we're seeing is kind of a devolvement of what we once said was the rules and principles of what made a person a G. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like anything goes. Anything goes now, man. And I think that it's a sad commentary, real sad commentary.
You know, just so you'll know, I expound on this. My frustration, and when I was calling out to the crews even earlier, right, and to dudes from prison, and when I make that call out, is that I understand that we see the country, man, you know what I mean? Primarily, you know, these young white soldiers, so to speak, man, that be in the woods all day, just, you know, coming out one day, man, and killing 15 people here, there, Vegas, wherever, right? But on this end, I get angered because I'm saying I was out here, when I got out, all I was hearing was defund the police. Now I went to all these marches and speeches, and I was saying that's kind of dumb to me, right? You know what I mean? Because I know how that'll play out, right? You know what I mean? We know the results. We've been part of that union strikes, whatever, right? And so I thought that was ridiculous. But I was talking about how this guy, John Kennedy, had got on. I don't know if you had heard that, but he had got on, and he does his commercial, and he was like, you know, just straight out, man, imagine doing a commercial, you running for a campaign, and you say, next time, basically, I got it too, I'm going to play that, I'm going to find that. And he just turned around and say, the next time, since you're talking defund the police, the next time you need a police officer, call a crackhead. You dig what I'm saying? That was his campaign message, man. So I just look at it with the whole defund the police thing. Once you were making that move, who protects the community then? So isn't that our responsibility at that point? If you don't want the police there, right? Then I'm saying, okay, it could be a mental person, it could be anything. But damn, we ain't got nothing else to do. You're hanging out, man. Let's if we know grandmother's gonna be up there, let's you know, and people are up there, man. She ain't up there 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Let's look after them, man. Let's come on. We ain't just talking about that. We're talking about stray bullets too, man. Even the hometown Chicago. You know what I mean? Like, come on, 2-year-olds and 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds. I mean, come on, talk to me about that. I don't get it.
Well, let me just first say that there's a lot of things that I thought was kind of not realistic when I first heard it, you know, and which now have become like national movements. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I like to say, when I heard things like defund the police, and it was kind of like right up there with, you know, with the new abolitionist movement against prisons. You know what I mean? But I remember hearing about that like in the early 90s, where people were pushing, you know, to be an abolition of prisons, like, you know, where I don't believe in prisons, and I should just think like, you know, because they was talking about, you know, doing away with prisons, and I was just like, well, damn, could we ever be in a time where prisons were just done away with? Like, you know what I mean? To me, I could not conceptually wrap my mind around it while serving time, you know, because of all the obvious reasons, right? You know, seeing how many people is invested, including the state itself, the government itself invested. But I do think that, you know, and I just want to fast forward to like 30 years later, you know, where I'm meeting now college kids who, and the whole abolitionist movement has been real. I mean, like, since then, they done created a national movement against prisons, and and really led to some, some of it being shut down or lend their support to keeping moratoriums alive. You know what I'm saying? And things of that sort. To build against building new prisons. So, I've learned ever since I saw Obama elected to never think, anything was unrealistic in that sense, right? Let me just say that on the record. But I will say that I think whether police are there or not, I think it's always our responsibility, right? As a community, particularly as Black men, to protect the women in our families and in our communities, right? I think that even when we was, in the streets, that was like commonly understood, right? And that was kind of why you would get a pass if you was with a child or if you happen to be with your mother. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I mean? Or you get caught with your girl or whatever, you might get roughed up. But, 90% of the time, dudes will just see you on their own time. So there was that unspoken type of respect, right, for the women. Not always it didn't always play itself out in our day-to-day. But, there always was that level of acknowledgement where today that's kind of like disappeared, that understanding, that loss of community. Now, when we start talking about all the reasons why, that is, I think that's a much larger conversation, right? That we even our program don't have enough time to truly explore. But I mean, just looking at it though, bro, like, just watching and seeing, I don't know. I just feel like it's always been our responsibility, probably even more so now, if not ever, because of the times we're living in, to kind of protect and insulate, our women, our families, from doing that. You got now dudes who come into people's households, turn their family, the women out to drugs, and doing that kind of thing. And to me, I always thought, man, that's like a death sentence, right? You come in and you turn my sister out to some drugs, or you turn her out to hoeing on the block, or, all this kind of, no, that to me was always like a death sentence. But I think that, it's the lack of respect for women in ourselves, and then all the stereotypical stuff that promotes and reduces them to objects, right, in our minds. And when I say our minds, I'm talking about whether you happen to be particularly a street person or a professional, because I don't think there's no distinguishment in that, because we're talking about something systemic, right? Something that's systemically being done and impact all of us, right? And it's just not street guys that has the responsibility, but it's also the professional guys who has that responsibility to be out there and, and regulating. You know what I'm saying?
I wanted to unpack that. In fact, let's transition to that, because I wanted to unpack that, right? Let's talk about some of our leaders, man. And we got Rashawn Hall coming on following you, right? But let's talk about that. I was like that in the penitentiary, right? You know what I mean? What people don't understand is my frustration comes from something factual. Yours come from something factual. Fuquan's come from something factual, right? I think about, bro, when we had over 200 guys that have come back to the street, like my brother Chris Ramp, and gone, right? That would sign a public apology that we sent all over. Do you understand that? That's the first thing in healing. That's what I hear from the religions for everything, right? To heal is to apologize, somebody to humble themselves, right? We took 200 of them and did that, man. Certified mail to every newspaper, everything. What do we get out of it? Do you understand? So let's come to this leadership. Why don't they acknowledge these things?
Well, I think, I don't know. There is what we know in my mind, and let me just say this in my mind, that there's a difference between the talkers and the doers, and I think there's always been that, right? That distinguishment, I should say. But also, there are people that are part of the system, man, and let me tell you, fear is real. If you think for one instance that, some of these, and let's just keep it real, whether they be the clergy, whether they be, firefighters or even police officers in their own time, on their own dime, on their own time, coming out here to patrol and all that. Man, most of them are afraid to. So it really comes down to the question, what are we willing to die for?
Lose their life. The ministers out there walking, man, we just seen them the other night right there, Facebook, 10,000 strong. They could join that, join something.
And it's 10,000 strong, and you got a good group of brothers out there, but there should be 10,000 of us. There's more than 10,000.
Shout out to Minister Randy. At least he's doing, you know what I mean? You can't have 10,000 strong if 10,000 don't come.
Absolutely. But my point is, but that's to my point. Men are afraid to die for what they believe in. See, you and I have learned those lessons early on in prison when we had to stand on the principle of what our beliefs were and suffer the consequence of it regardless to whom or what, right? But you don't have that today in a lot of the interactions in society. Very few people are willing to do that. Very few people are willing to, suffer the brunt of whatever the establishment may give them in return if it doesn't coincide with the status quo, right? So let's say that. Even when you go back and harken back to the Panthers, to the early, or to the days of what we see the nation are doing now by getting out in the streets and trying to, quell the violence and things of that nature. The reason why you don't have that large call and response type of effect is because you have people who are afraid. I don't, what if they see me by myself? Am I prepared to deal with that? You know what I'm saying? And so much so that I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when that organization from out of New York, the Angels or whatever, when they came down here to Massachusetts to kind of said they was going to patrol the streets because it was so violent, so whatever.
The Guardian Angels. Yeah, the Guardian Angels.
There you go. And then everybody got upset. There was a bunch of, we don't need nobody to come down here. We could do that ourselves, and we should do that. And and nothing came of that, right? I mean, there was a whole bunch of, seconds, 5 minutes of fame on the film, on the news shots, and then after that, for both the Guardian Angels and for them, right? Nothing came of that. So I remember where Mayor Menino, before he passed, after seeing the violence, ongoing violence in the city, after giving out all that money to all these people who was saying they could do a job that they couldn't do, speaking of clergy and that effect, and he said it, he went out there to the public meeting, I think in Eugene Rivers' place and asked them, all right, enough of the fancy speeches and all that. What are y'all going to do the job and stop the violence? It's become a hustle among the Negroes. And to me, a Negro is an educated person that learned the system and learned how to manipulate others, like the main system does, right? To exploit them. And so we have a lot of that in leadership. And then you have a lot of brothers who are that doesn't have no ill intent, but who are just, stifled with fear, unless it impacts their immediate family, and even sometimes when it does impact their immediate family, man, I mean, they still are unwilling to do anything about it. So I think it's this, I would call it like culling, right? Where we become so dependent on someone to do for ourselves, we could do for ourselves, right? And that's how I feel about the police and everything else. Not that they don't have a place in society. In my mind, I think they represent something totally different than what they should. But, the reality of it is that, they're there. I get that. But do they have the responsibility, the true responsibility to develop to protect our community in the way that we do, who we have more invested in what happens in our community day in and day out, I say no, they don't. I don't think we are always aligned with the same interests. I think the history tells us that, right? And I think that remains true today, no matter if they have a black face or a white face in front of it. So, with that said, yeah, bro, I mean, to me, it's obvious, right? We need to get back to, what works. And what works is, we have to do for ourselves. We have to make sure our people are safe, our elderly are safe. We have to get out on the front street, but we want to create sound bits. We don't want to do the work. We want to point the fingers at everybody not doing the work, but we got to do the work. You know what I'm saying?
Understood.
So that's how I feel about that.
Understood. There was an article, man, I had peeped earlier too, right, Em? And it was about reparations. And it was this first town, you know what I mean, of blacks, man, to get theirs, right? And they're getting it in the form of housing. You dig what I'm saying? People should look at that. You know what I mean? It was an article, and it's reparations the U.S. town paying its black residents, right? And it's in Evanston, right? And I'll give you a little bit about how they plan it. Evanston's reparations take the form of grants of $25,000, which can only be used for housing repairs, to pay down a mortgage, or as down payment on a house, right? So what they did was they're just taking everybody, man, and just saying, hey, man, one of the black guys on here, he said, I didn't get my 40 acres in the Mew. I was waiting on that. You know what I mean? He said, I'll probably never get it. And then he was one of the first ones picked in the lottery, right, to get his. And I'm saying, you hit a point, man, where you say something is better than nothing, right? And because most of us will never probably see that. But what you think about that, man? Shout out to Evanston over there, man, and them being able to do that. Just here's this place saying, we just gonna give all the black families that been here, 25 on their mortgage or whatever, man. That's a move. That should happen everywhere.
Well, I think definitely it's a start, and I think I've seen something. About this a while ago. Tell the truth. I don't know if you're referring to something that just happened recently, and if you are, then I saw another place that actually did that same thing where the city council voted that in, and people were geared to start getting $25,000, and they kind of explained that, right, that what that process was. But, I think that when we talk about
because the law on it was passed in 2019, but they just, did their first payout.
Okay, so then
that's what it's about.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so we saw the same thing then. Okay,
yeah, they just
absolutely.
now they enacted it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I think it's a good start, right? I think that
Can I just say this, bro? Can I jump in on this real quick, just to say this?
Go ahead, bro.
Okay, I help me get the. I know it's some form of mythology, right? Because it hasn't happened, right? And only way it's gonna happen, man. This land got bombed up and everybody just went for theirs. That's just the facts, right? Because when you're talking about 40 acres in a mule, you ain't gonna get 40 acres on the block, right? Unless you tear down people's houses, and then nobody ain't gonna tear their house down to get no mule, right? But if they said, move on out to these country lands, Texas, everywhere else, man, and here's your 40 acres in your mule, right? If that just could happen, I'm trying to say, how many people know how to work the mule or the land?
Well, I think
we don't even take these jobs. We don't even learn these trades.
All right. Well, I don't know. I want to say that definitely has been true for some time. But I think the benefit of the younger generation coming up is really they have a lot of hindsight that they can learn from, right? And I think that they have been paying attention, so even in the sense of, the type of people who they're calling to these universities to talk to them about different subject matters, it is, there's not the Jesse Jacksons and all the other, the previous folks who have been solely in, a champion of just civil rights, right? I think they're kind of reverting back to the whole idea of, we have to build ourselves from the ground up and get into this industry in a competition way, that makes sense, right? Not that we want someone to feel bad for us, but that we need to be armed with that type of real equity, true equity, so that we can take care of ourselves. And so you now are seeing a lot of people going into those different fields, man, that cultivate the land, agriculture, you know what I'm saying? Industries, where they're studying how what's the term I'm looking for? What's that industry? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Well, let me come back to that anyway. But they're getting into all these various different fields, young people, because they raised the question: what should we be studying? What's going to be the most, impactful moving forward? Moving our generation forward. And so you see, at least I've seen that from afar, reading the articles and watching the discussions from afar, right? So I do think that there's a change. But to get to, your point about the reparations, this is $25,000. I mean, $25,000 in this day of economy is not, it's worth next to nothing. I get it. It's free, but it's not enough to buy a house, and if you own a house,
I chimed in to see what you thought on that. I don't mean I thought that was a fair deal or any kind of other deal, right? But I'm saying it's the first deal that I'm seeing, right? And I know one thing, man.
I just want to be clear, right? I just want to be clear that when I say it's a step in the right direction, I mean I think that it's to set us up for a bigger discussion on how do we move forward. And so, there's a great debate in and around what reparations should mean, because if you give everybody $25,000, what are they going to do with that money? How are they going to invest it? Most of them is just going to turn around and give it right back, because they don't know what to do with that money, right? And so I think the first
shout out to Britt Johnson. Seeing you saying that,
that's
you know
right,
what I mean? I think she'll be with us. She'll be with us Sunday or Friday. One of those we'll tell you about that.
Right, absolutely.
Shout out to Britt. But I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay on that. I just wanted to touch on that. You know what I mean? Because there's so many things on the list. But go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I think that it's definitely a start of a good conversation. But I think that and I think that the conversation in and around reparations is not just about money, but it's about meaningful education, right? What does that mean to have meaningful education in a way that makes you, industrious? You know what I'm saying? I think that that's the whole idea. So if I get $25,000, I know what to do with that money. You know what I mean? I know how to invest it. I know where to, I know how to build something for myself and turn that into something else that will produce for my family. And so, I think that for me, any real reparations has to do with something in that vein,
Understood. You know what we're gonna do, M? I'm gonna take a quick break, right? We're gonna take a quick pause. Me and you still here, right? I wanted to I don't know if you know, but it came across my radar, man, just suddenly, right? You know what I mean? Just day before yesterday that Andrea James' husband died. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, terrible thing, man. You know what I mean? I met the brother and so on, and to come back, I think the blessing in it, I'll continue to say, with no offense to no one, I don't know other people's beliefs, but my belief is that if I had to go anywhere, right, you know what I mean, especially to God, it would be in the middle of his work. And I know that's one thing they were in the middle of, you know what I mean? Him just coming home.
Right.
You were in the middle of that work. You got a bunch of women from across the country flown in to be together, to gather, to support each other. You know what I mean? So I wanted Andrea to know that, I'm aware of that. I hear that. I said that the other night, you know what I mean? And that we with her. So I just, I wanted to run that by
definitely. Definitely we are with that sister, and great condolences to her, man, and her loss. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Her organization is Free Her. I want you can tell them a little bit about it. You know what I mean? Free Her. That's the organization, and she puts in a lot of work. You know what I mean? She puts in a lot of work, bro. Regardless, you know what I mean? Everybody does their thing differently, so on how we do it. But she does put in her work.
There you go. That's what it is.
That's what I want to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We recognize you, Andrea, and that's on my mind. We're going to take a quick break right here. And I don't know why I chose this song, but if you're old school, just ride with me. We'll be back. I'm on here with Mac Hudson. You on Bump That Radio with the bad boy of good talk. I hope more good talk than bad, but there's a bad situations going on. I'm thinking on Miss McGuire. You know, we send our condolences, you know, and not our condolences. Let me just cancel that. That's how traumatic it is on my end when I think of her hit so many times. God's the best of planners, so the sister is here with us, man. Self-correction immediately. It's just troubling, man. You know what I mean? I think of being 91 and, you know, being stabbed, like, she's so strong. You feel what I'm saying? Wow. We done seen this, man. We done seen brothers get hit once and whatever, so, you know, that's God's people right there. But Andrea James will be back. You know, I want to send something out, man. Just a vibe, but I know it's a lot of love there, and we feel you. I'll be back with Matt Hudson. You're on Bump That Radio. I get tongue-tied, but I got a lot of love for you. I know that much.
Oh, it's been such a long, long time. Look like I get you off of my mind, but I can't. Just the thought of you turns my whole world misty blue. Oh, honey, just the mention of your name turns the flicker to a flame. Listen to me, good baby. I think of the things we used to do, and my whole world turns misty blue. Oh, baby, I should forget you. Heaven knows I've tried. Baby, when I say that I'm glad we're through, deep in my heart I know I've lied. I've lied. I've lied. Such a long, long time. Looks like I'd get you off of my mind, but I can't. Just the thought of you, my love, my whole world turns misty blue.
Yeah, shout out to Andrea. I'm live here. I got them over there snacking and eating in the background. So I'm going to get to this right here. Get on to it. Hold on, man. I got to check something real quick. Can y'all give me 1 second, man? We just 1 second. Talk to the people for a second. Mac Hudson is back on the line. So peace and love.
That's right.
Talk to him for a second, man. I got to check up top.
Yeah, we back. We back online trying to get it right. Reminiscing and really with our hearts full of sorrow for some of the latest events that's been happening around some of our sisters in the community. And we're just hoping, that this discussion, among others that are going around in the Black community and abroad, that, we start asking ourselves the real question, what are we doing? And what should we be doing? And are we ready to do it? I say we should be by now, and if not, whenever.
Whenever. Okay, I got you. I'm listening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm listening, for real talk.
No bull, man. I mean, I guess I'm kind of, where you and I are like, bro, and our frustration is that we know what should be happening. We know why it should be happening, and not seeing it happen, it creates that frustration. What I've learned, though, over a course of time. Because we've been in it so
long, man. There's a lot of work done that people out here don't know about, have no idea about. And there was a lot of people leading out here that know that work, that was coming in to get that information and then to come home to it. Yeah, bro, it's almost like too much.
And I can understand that. No, I get it. I really, seriously, but to me, it just drives me. And it's so crazy because it's like, it drives me to want to do the work and commit and kind of double down, right? And it comes, and I guess it comes at such a great expense of everyone that thinks like that. I think of the Malcolm X's, the Martin Luther Kings, that really nationally traveled around and took on these fights, in the way that they did. And it's a great sacrifice. You and I know that from the ones that we've made in the joint. And now the continuation of that out here in the world is almost, to me, like where we're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? But
I think I came home, man, and looked at religion even more than we looked at it in there. We already know, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the more I looked at it, and man, the more depression it was. And then I was sitting there, man, it's almost like they didn't converted our kids to believe, right? With videos of Tupac dancing up there and he's meeting up with Marvin Gaye, whoever he wants, man. Like they the whole thing is, I don't care if I die. Like if I die, man, I can go to heaven and just ask which cloud the liquor store on. You know what I'm saying? Like it don't work like that, man.
No, it don't.
Your life is worth something.
And right.
I don't think yeah, but anything good's gonna involve a whole bunch of doing the same thing we already did.
I don't think so neither, but I do think that those of us that have the courage and the wherewithal to do something, right, that's why we have to do it. And when we don't do it, I think that's what depresses us. I know that's true for me. If I don't do what I think should be done in those circumstances, it depresses me, man. It really does. And I'm not afraid to say it, And I think that's true for a lot of us, and we don't really realize that, because, of course, we're not experts in the field. So we might be misdiagnosing it, or we might be numbing ourselves to the degree where, we try to put it as far out of our mind, thinking that somebody else will pick it up and run with it. But the reality of it is that, we have to do it. We have to do it. And that do it means a whole lot. I'm not just talking about, joining on to movements like what we see our brother Minister Randy's doing out there, but I'm talking about every one of us that are out there finding reasons not to get together, right? We need to start bridging that gap. We need to start really thinking collectively, man, as a community, right? And in most cases, we really need to be concentrating on rebuilding our family structure.
But I want people to understand. So, they're going to say, man, somewhere, somehow, hey, we heard all this before. We have. But you're hearing it now from two black males, you know what I mean? Men here that, we were against this even in prison. I was in it 32 years and we ran all the programs we could run, and we started programs and we did what we were supposed to do, you know what I mean? And against the odds. And So I want them to understand that you're talking to somebody that was in the prison system with your children. We saw a little generations come here. You know what I mean? Same way we did with the gods. We went from the God watching us to his son, to his daughter. You know what I mean? Passing on down the line, and we saw their children too. And not all their children are as bad as this thing has been hyped up to be, but nobody's reminding them the good in them. You understand that? We had them in the program, so we know the good in you. You can't hide it from us. You know what I mean? But nobody out here is pulling that from them. So that's the issue. We don't have a kid's problem. We got an adult problem, man.
I mean, and that to me is clear. You know, that to me is clear. And I'm glad you kind of said that way. And also, you know, as a reminder, like, you know, we aren't saying anything new, right? I mean, we have heard this 1,000 times. I think the only difference is that, you know, there are pockets of us who are really out there just doing the work. You know, I think we don't really truly understand, though, because we've never really had that experience, right, of what it's like to really come together. Like, see, we know that because we have brought brothers together in one movement behind the wall. You know what I mean? You know, so much so that it done filled up all the seats in the child hall.
You know, that's a hell of a point, man. Shout out to Minister Don. He came in, you know what I mean, auditoriums, right? And when you say that's a hell of a point, and because the thing they talk about they might do out here in Black Lives Matter and everything else that matters, we actually have done that in wars against the police. We've been all black. Those of us that don't talk to each other, street gangs against each other. That was a hell of a point. You're right. That's it, right. We lived that.
Yeah, so, you know, so we have a different reality base and really know what could be done. But when you're talking to a bunch of folks who have never experienced that, it's like, you know, they don't understand what they could truly achieve. So, you know, much of what I said, and I said this to a friend the other day, you know, what we're talking about is people's ego and pride at the end of the day, right? Everybody wants their own individuality, and I get it. You know, you want recognition for the work that you do, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's only something wrong with that if it comes at the expense, right, of the greater good for us all. You know, and I think that that's where we have to begin. We have to begin in a place where, you know, as a building block of the same interests, which we can't deny. We all got the same interests, right? Wanting a safe community, you know, wanting meaningful education, wanting to make sure we have equitable means to a job that will provide something for our kids, and, you know, and watching them come up and live their lives in a productive manner and in a safe atmosphere. So, I mean, we all want the same things, you know. The problem is that we don't all believe in what unity can bring, and then we have to flesh that out, you know, between those that do and those that don't, and then watch who flourishes, because that's the only way others is going to learn, you know, by seeing it live in action. I can remember our debates, you know, back then, you know, in and around the same thing.
How many? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Right.
Yeah, in and around the same thing about having the
Hall. Shout out to Rashawn Hall too. Shout out. We waiting on Rashawn Hall. Absolutely. He just hit me up, so you'll know. So we'll be bouncing. But go ahead, Em.
No, I was gonna say, bro, like, you know, in and around, you know, this very thing, you know, the example has to be set, has to be shown, has to be, you know. And so I really think, you know, I would love to believe that a lot of us who getting out today, who are building these organizations, you know, such as Andrea, such as the sister Mildred, I hope I didn't kill her, you know, slaughter her name.
Oh, Romelda, that's my little sister. That's on my, you know what I mean? She on that list. Latoya Whiteside's on that list. Yeah. Shout out to Trish, you know, man. I'm gonna have Trish on the show. Patricia, man, you know what I mean? Remember Trish used to be mental health up there. We're gonna talk prison on her. We're gonna get Dickinson, you, me, her. You know what I mean? You know, we're gonna go in. We're gonna go in. I'm telling you.
No, but I mean, just all of them. You know, the Joey Bennett's out there, you know, people that done picked up what we done put down and took off came out here and really done some positive things for themselves and on behalf of the community, it's like, bro, I mean, I'd like to say that we're in a situation where we can now show that, through unifying these efforts and bringing people into this one universal discussion about what needs to happen, right? And the other part is making sure that our stories are told, all of our stories, right? Not just, starting off with where we coming from. We're trying to ensure that today, right? But all our stories are told about the ongoing plight, of Black life and under and in a racist society that still remains the same, right? Structurally.
There it is. There it is. There it is, man. Hey, and we got to get out of here, man. I got Rashawn Hall on the other line. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to play this joint by Yellow Pain, right? My vote will count. We talking election. And you know how to hit me on the main line, right? You know what I mean? If you feel like it's something, man, you want to chime in with Rashawn, hit me up somewhere in there, you heard? And, I throw you on here, man, because, Rashawn's going to really
shout out to Rashawn. Shout out to Rashawn. I want to give. I hope my brother go on and win his victory, man. I'm supporting him. I hope that he takes the day, and I believe that he will. That's for sure. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely,
shout out to Rashawn.
Definite. Man, you been on Bump That Radio here. You ain't been on, you stay on. We got Rashawn Hall coming here. He's running for Plymouth County DA. We'll tell you about how he ran at ACLU and how he actually visited the prisons, and he's taking on the county, man, in a place that I happen to be. But I'm not biased about it. I'm paying attention to it. It's very important to me. We've been on here with Mac Hudson, man, my brother, man, coming home. You understand, 33 years, just getting home, 5 weeks, man. He learning the phones. He's out. He's everywhere. You catch him out there. You catch him out there. Yeah, man, you want to say anything important, Rashawn? I am on my way.
All I want to say, man, is everybody keep it up, man. Keep moving forward, and let's get together and do something better. One.
That's what it is, man. I'll talk to you in a minute, Mac. Let me get to this right here, and we'll be back with Rashawn Hall. We're going to talk about these elections. We're going to talk about what he's running for in this justice system.